This is Dion McCormick, no relation to me, our lead solutions engineer and founder of Giant Killer Training. Also joining us, as I said, is Sarah Mitchell, head of our documentation department. And today, Dion is going to be doing a demonstration, but we're also here to take your questions. You can go ahead and type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So Dion, let's jump into it. I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
So is this a new machine? It looks shiny and new.
It is newer. So I'm getting everything kind of set up. It'll be a little bit more stable for the future. So let me zoom in back to the regular size. There you go. Okay, not to be too scary. Right. Excellent. Well, thank you, everybody. Welcome to wonderful summer. Summer has finally arrived here in fabulous Texas. So anyway, we have a real fun day for you. We have some news, we have a demonstration, we have some follow-up on calls that people said. So it's a very interesting. So let me make sure that I'm adjusting my mic also.
Sounds good.
Yep, knew everything. So, okay, good. So anyway, we are here for you. So we really appreciate you joining us. So first and foremost, if you have any questions during the presentation, or you have other questions, please go to your control panel and go into the questions area, put the questions in there. Dave and Sarah, who is joining us, will be reviewing those and helping me out from that standpoint here. Along with that, also, we always love to have questions through guides at Alpha Software. In fact, today's presentation came from a request from someone at Guides from Alpha Software. So we monitor that, we use that for content, and we are going to cover that today. So if you have any good burning questions and you come up with them, don't send them the morning of. I mean, we like those, but it's not going to give us much time to react. So the odds are lower there. But again, thanks for joining us in summer. I mean, some people are out on vacations, I hope, enjoying themselves, maybe at the beach.
Dan, I think we should clarify that. If they do send it the morning of, it isn't that we won't go to it. You just might not get the right answer.
That's true. The odds are lower. Let's just say if we do a Fibonacci series, it's just not going to resolve. So that kind of thing. Anyway, yeah, agreed. We send them anytime, but the
send
sooner
them anytime, including live. I'd like to point that out. We do take them live.
And remember, the early bird gets the worm. So keep that in mind when you're sending your questions in from that standpoint there. So great. Last week we had by the way, I just wanted to mention that, yes, summer has finally arrived here in Texas. So I wanted to kind of show a real live picture of me during the webinar. That part hasn't happened yet.
So what's the temperature down in Austin right now?
It is about 103. It was 108 yesterday. Insane. And that's not in your car. That's like out on the street kind of thing.
But is this one of these wimpy dry heats like they get in Arizona, or is this
Yeah, actually it's not too bad.
Texas? It's not too bad.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, versus Louisiana, which is brutal. So that's fun. So we're surviving, but we don't know how long. If I stop talking halfway through this, you may know why. Heat stroke or some other things along those lines. So first and foremost, breaking news. We have some very, very big breaking news that we want to share. And that is the following. First, new Alpha Cloud plans. You might have gotten an email on this. Check your email if you didn't. If not, send an email to Guides at Alpha Software and say, why am I not getting my emails on these things? And we have new Alpha Cloud plans, which I want to show in a few moments here. I'm very, very excited. Me personally, just dig it. I love using Alpha Cloud. Alpha Cloud makes my life so much easier when I'm doing development work, prototyping, QA, etc. There's so many built-in features and it just runs. It's very, very powerful and stable and awesome. So these new plans are going to be great, especially for people who are just kind of experimenting with Alpha and also are doing certain projects and they don't want to go through and build out a whole environment. It's really going to be a handy tool for a lot of different people. And we also have a fabulous new pre-release. Actually, it's been out for a little bit, but I want to kind of cover some of the highlights of it. There's some really powerful things that are in there that are super exciting for me that I want to share with you from that. And also that pre-release is sort of in the final throes of testing, etc. So that is going to go from pre-release to release very soon. So excited about that. But first, let's jump over. So if you go to the Alpha Software, Alpha Worry-Free, let me go ahead and copy this here. I'll go ahead and put it on here and I'll put it in the chat window. So there we go. you can go there and check it out. This is our Alpha Cloud page, but you'll notice down here there's a nice describer if you haven't spent much time on it. But you'll see we have a new right-sized deployment structure with different levels that allow you to get started with Alpha Cloud. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is including the license for the server. I mean, it's an all-in-one kind of deal. And just, I want to make sure I'm not giving anybody any wrong information, Dave, but isn't
It's
that?
all in one. You do not need a license,
Yep.
application deployment license with that.
And so they're different levels. Obviously, the professional is really just your, I call it almost a sandbox development kind of stuff. It's for development, testing, light use. It's really not focused for production because it doesn't have the bandwidth and structures that are put together to support that. But also quickly we go to the department level, which is more for small office and smaller applications. Then we have business, which have like really hardcore applications. And then if you have something special, we also have custom plans that are available for you. So check it out. Very excited about this. Again, this really, I think, is going to do a couple things. It again allows you to not have to worry about all the DevOps stuff. You just sign up and go. Great for that testing, development. You got a great new idea, you want to try it out. It's very, very powerful there. And then as you grow and as your clients, and I know a lot of people here have in clients, you'll be able to say, hey, okay, this is kind of your costing structure. And again, treat it as a business opportunity because you can, on top of this, obviously charge more than Alpha does. So there's some really good business opportunities to provide applications to people and let Alpha do the work, meaning we're taking care of keeping the servers running, keeping everything going. We make your life easier. We can use auto deploy and all the other cool Alpha Cloud features to make your life very, very simple. So check it out. Again, it's at that Alpha Software Alpha Cloud worry-free, and this has just been released, so it's brand new. If you have questions, let us know. You can either call right here or give us an email. We'll do everything in our power to continue to answer any questions you have there. So that's super exciting, and that is the new Alpha Cloud plans. And I don't want to iterate, but for me, who really likes Alpha Cloud, this is also great for new people to Alpha because it will allow them a nice smooth path to take their concept, their development environment, and put it up and make it real with all the facilities and resources they need, including, oh, you name it, it's doable from there. So super excited about this. This should drive more adoption of Alpha, more people involved, more developers. It's really going to be super exciting. So double check that when you get a chance. Now, the other big breaking news is the pre-release. And again, production is slated for fairly soon, so we're really on the cusp. And there's some really cool things in that. So let me go ahead and go to the pre-release board. And I check it so often, it's on my bookmarks. Okay, so remember, not yet. It's not intended for production. Again, we're going through all the final testing. It's pretty good, but we want to make sure. So we're going to be covering these in more details over the next few weeks, but there are about 3 major key things in this that I really want to highlight. Actually, 4. The first, which I think is the most interesting, is that we have the new, where is it here? Oh, not there, but you can get the new calendar functionality with a feature key. So we've been talking about the calendar functionality. It's coming, it's in the system. We're still working out all the little stuff in there, but we do have the ability for you to use the calendar function with what's called an app key, which will turn on because it's not ready for prime time, but we want people to start using it and get used to it and things like that. So that's one of the big ones there. The next one, which is really interesting and very intriguing, is what's called GraphQL. And what GraphQL is an extension of Alpha's API capability. So as we've demonstrated and Alpha has the ability to generate APIs. You basically create an Xbasic class, and within a few minutes, you can expose that as a web API that then you can use with any kind of Postman tools, third-party tools, etc. So it makes it very easy for you to take that internal capability of Alpha and turn it into an API-driven architecture, which is where you want to go, where you want to be. Makes life very simple there. Well, what GraphQL is, and again, we're going to do more detail on this. I just want to introduce it. GraphQL is a very powerful way to kind of turn APIs almost into like a SQL front end. So you'll see it's GraphQL like SQL, and the idea is that and this was really developed by, I think Facebook was one of the key drivers here. Normally when you have APIs, they're very point focused. I want to get a order ID. I want to get a customer record. I want to do this, I want to do that. And what you'll see over time as you start developing APIs is that you may need to make 3 or 4 calls to get the information you need. I need to get the customer, and then I got to get their orders, and then I got to get the line items. Those could be 3 separate calls. What GraphQL does, which is very, very powerful, is it allows you to basically wrap it into a single call that will do more sophisticated, essentially SQL-like commands to your API system. So it turns out it becomes much simpler and easy to build your API front ends on it. Because you can say, make 1 call, get the customer, their line items, and are the orders and their line items all in 1 call. And again, there's some great videos. And if you walk through these videos, it will give you a really good feel for what you can do with GraphQL. But this is super exciting for anybody who's doing API stuff or moving that direction. It basically takes our current API capability and turns it into what would be called on steroids. It's really, really, really good from there. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at here, and let me just adjust some stuff here. Let's go. Let's go here. Let's go down a little bit farther. Okay, so the next one, which I'm very excited, is the new app building mobile apps using Ionic App Flow. So as we've been talking about, and people have brought up, PhoneGap basically, Adobe put PhoneGap build on sort of hiatus, meaning they stopped really driving that product. They stopped updating it. They don't sell plans, etc. So Alpha, the development team, took the time to go in and really build out the way to use the command line. But again, that wasn't optimal. We really want to make your life really easy. So again, the development team did not stand still. They continued to look for it, and they found a very cool, powerful capabilities, and it's called Ionic App Flow. And think of it as actually, I think it's better than PhoneGap build. So let me go ahead and open up a thing here. Let's go ahead and put it in here and put this here. Okay, so Ionic App Flow is basically a way to build apps online. So essentially, what you know on PhoneGap is PhoneGap build. So it has a lot of other really cool features. You can do live updates. You can do native builds, which is what you need for that. And again, it's very similar to the process of Alpha, and it has some other neat integrations. So for instance, it will pull your code from a repository and do the build off that. So there's some automation and other things that are really cool on there. And what's cool about it from my standpoint is that it returns us back into, you don't have to do a bunch of command lines. You don't have to sit there and install a bunch of stuff. You basically sign up for the service and you go from there. Now, that said, just to let everybody know, it's a little bit more expensive than PhoneGap. There is a free version, but that really isn't going to do because you need to be able to compile native app libraries. So there is a cost that's associated with it. But you can publish all your things. You can publish directly to app stores. So this actually has more features than PhoneGap build did. PhoneGap basically said, we'll build it on there and give it back to you. So that's why they could price it pretty cheaply, which is probably also why they ended up not doing it, because they realized they couldn't make any money about it. But this allows you to compile there. You can do live updates. You can publish directly to app stores. And there's a really nice capabilities there. But the benefit really is it turns this back into a point and click kind of exercise where you can use it to build your apps there. So we're going to be doing more dive into it. I mean, this is fairly new, so we're getting our head around it from our team here versus the developers. And it's really cool. I'm very happy because the development team kept driving back towards make our developers' lives easier. And that's an element that goes from there. So let me go jump back here. And I went to the wrong one. Let's go back here, pre-release notes. Okay. So that's another exciting. So we have GraphQL, very, very powerful. There's some features that are nicer, like there's some really cool like animation features and things like that. Ability to select runtime styles. Again, I talked about Ionic Appflow, but also in here is a discussion, and this kind of ties into the Alpha Cloud. You have the ability to connect Alpha Cloud. There's test databases that come with Alpha Cloud. So when you create an Alpha Cloud account, there's a way for you to basically spin up some databases, some cloud-based databases that are available. And they can be either SQL Server or MySQL, up to you. And I think also Postgres is another third one, although not sure how many people are using that from that standpoint. But we have some training in here that shows how you can do it. And what's really cool is that Alpha will spin it up, create the connection string, and do all that work for you. There is one element that you really need to know about that, is that these Alpha Cloud databases kind of live within the Alpha Cloud environment. So you really can't hit it externally from an IP address. It's kind of within the environment. But there are methods that allow you to use third-party tools such as Navicat, DBForge, etc., to SSMS to connect to that Alpha Cloud through Alpha. So we have made sure that it's going to be easy for you to do development. So that is available there. So this kind of walks you through it there. It's easy to spin up the databases, and then you can connect your favorite tools to manage that database information. It'll automatically create connection strings, stuff like that. So you can see breaking news, there's a ton in here. There's a lot of work that's been going on. I mean, the GraphQL stuff alone is probably a couple man years of effort that are in this, and we're excited to be able to share that with everybody. And then there's a lot of other little features, like things like AutoHab for Panel. There's Postgres. Again, we support that pretty heavily. So you can kind of look through, and let me go ahead and just put this here on the chat. Okay, there you go. And again, the one I'm very excited about is Ionic App Flow. And again, we'll come back and do a little bit more time on that in the near future. So new Alpha Cloud plans, including the database capability. We've got a pre-release coming very soon to a release that's going to have all these new great features in it that'll support not only Alpha Cloud. I'm sorry, this thing keeps moving. I apologize. My audio gets a little strange there. There, now it's pointed. It's kind of pointing to the 45-degree angle there. So the pre-release has all those capabilities, which I think will be really fun to work with. And again, as we mentioned before, the calendar capability is now in the tool. If you're interested, there's a key that will unlock it. Again, really kind of where we want to get some feedback and some elements there. So we want to get it out there and let people play with it and use it, and we'll continue driving and getting it into production as soon as possible. Sarah, Dave, any other kind of comments or thoughts about the new release? Super excited.
It is super exciting. There's actually quite a lot for us to be testing out here in this pre-release. So we do encourage people to dive in and take a look at these features.
Very cool. Very, very neat. Okay, so now I want to go into a great question that was provided by a loyal developer. And, you know, we've been focusing a lot on the ability to do things such as, you know, creating a tabbed UI. And so I'm going to go ahead and really quickly give you an example of what that looks like. Oops, that's a page. I always do that. Back here, create a new page. Oh, geez. And I don't want a grid to come on. Okay, slow. I'm just so excited about it, Dave. I'm just going kind of crazy here. So I'm going to go ahead and build a quick tabbed UI replacement. What I do like to do is use my control library, as we've talked about in the past, so I don't have to click about 20 times. I can click one time, get a basic structure here. So I've got a panel with a header, and now I'll go ahead and change this to menu. In fact, I should just create that. There you go, menu. And then I'll go over here and create content. And I'm going to do one other cool thing. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to put in what's called an expanding menu. Where's my expanding menu? Main menu. And we'll go ahead and add a few little things just to show what it looks like here. We'll go in there. Menu Data Genie. Item 1, item 2. Doesn't do anything, but it kind of shows you the concept. Okay, now I don't know why this is the default menu color. I have never understood it, but I'm not a big fan, so I'm going to change it real quick. Something interesting. Okay, there you go. So we'll go here and say tabbed. And if you want this, I will be able to send this to you after the presentation. So we'll go ahead and we'll go in there, and now we have, and it's limited. There's a lot more capabilities we would do to make it a full thing. Actually, you know what? Let's do one thing here. We'll go to properties, make it compact style, and we'll go ahead and consume that as the total fill container. There we go. So the idea behind a tabbed UI is on the left-hand side, you have a menu, and then you have a content area. And as you engage with the menu, you populate things in there. So, you know, I've got my menu over here. You know what? This needs to be a little shorter. So I'm going to go into the menu here, and I'm going to say, you know what? That menu, let's go to the panel card. Let's say we only want it to be 15%. So go back in here and look at it. So this is a traditional. You have the area up top, which is the control bar, and then you have the menu on the left, and then the content. And again, if you're interested in finding more details on how to flesh this out into a full-blown, we did a whole series about a month and a half, 2 months ago. You can go grab those and do there. I just want to set the structure here. So the one question that came through was like, hey, I like the tabbed UI, but here's the deal. Sometimes I want to actually show the menu, like I'm on a tablet or a desktop because I have a lot of screen real estate. There are other times where I'd rather have it as like a drop-down menu here. And I want to be able to choose it and be able to do that. So the question was, well, how would I come up with that? So I started thinking about it. And what we really want to do is that we want to make this panel card go away in certain situations. So first, let me add a quick menu up in the demonstration area. So I'll go in the control bar. I'll add an item, and it's the button drop-down menu. I'm going through pretty quickly because we have a lot to cover. But if I am going too quick or I miss something, please, please, please let us know. I can go back and recover that. So I'm just going to go ahead and chain this into a button, and we'll use a traditional bar kind of button. And I'll go to my layout here. And you'll see I've got the title on here. Let's go ahead and modify this real quick. I'll get rid of I'll add my menu, and I'll remove this and then add the title to be here. Okay. Now I want to do one other thing here. I want to go into my button drop-down menu. I'm going to go into the menu definition, and as I did here, I want to go add item, item 1, item 2. So I'm basically replicating my main menu. So I have a menu that I use the expanding menu here, and then I also have a menu in the control bar. So we'll go ahead and save it, save often, very important there. We do a working preview. And now you'll see I have both menus. I have this menu right here, and I have this menu right here. So the idea is like, well, you know, if I just want this menu, I don't want to show this, but I want to have opportunities to do so. So Alpha has a really cool, I did a little research and I came up with a really cool idea, and it's called flow control. And it's sort of an element of panel cards. And I wanted to show it because it actually facilitates this situation here, but it also very powerfully facilitates other kind of scenarios that you might see in the past. The idea is I have some content here. I want to show that, but I also want to give the user to be able to get rid of that content if they don't need that. So let's go ahead and investigate how we do that. So you'll notice, very important, that we have a panel layout and we have 2 panel cards here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my panel layout here. And first thing I'm going to do is over here, you'll notice that we have information about how the panels are laid out. So the idea is a panel layout is a enclosure that allows you to see multiple panel cards at a time, and they're either shown left to right or top to bottom or right to left, etc. But there's another thing too, which is the docked panel display method. So what docking is docking allows you to temporarily hide panel cards. And usually how it's done is that when you show a panel card, it kind of slides over the existing content because you may be editing a record and then you want something to come out and show temporarily and go behind. But that's not the only way to do those behaviors. You also have the ability to do something called like a push. And you'll see that in a moment. So I'm going to change that to a push. So the first thing we want to do is allow, instead of the panel card like hovering over, I want to be able to do like a slide out kind of thing where it basically pushes the content over and does it from there. Now, what I want to be able to do is give the user the ability to take this content area. And let me go ahead and just put in a static text here. So we'll see it a little bit more. And what we want them to be able to do is click a button and hide our menu because maybe they don't need it. Maybe they don't want it shown. So in order to do so, I'm going to go ahead and put a panel header in here. And I'm not going to use a control bar, although you could. And then here I'm going to add a button, and I'm going to call it hide menu. Okay, so all I have right now is my panel layout. I have my button hide menu. And right now it's a text button. It could be a graphic here. So now what I want to do is I'm going to go here to panel card content. So I'm selecting the panel card, not the one I want to hide. I'm selecting this card content here. And you'll notice over here, there's something called flow collapse button. Always been there. It's not a new feature. It's been around forever. but it's possible that you've seen it, but you're like, well, what is that? We don't do it. Usually we use things like, panel card navigation and stuff to do that from there. So now I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what? Interesting. I'm going to give this a flow collapse button. And so it does that. And then it asks me, well, what's the ID of that button? Well, in that case, it's button number 1. So if I go back here, when I created the button, it gave it this unique ID. So often I'd probably give that button hide menu or something so it's easier to read. But in our case, I'm going to the panel card and selecting the button. Now, interesting enough, this button needs to be on this panel card. If you put it on a different panel card, you really can't find that button. And there's programmatic ways to do what I'm doing here, but we want to keep it without programmatic methodologies. So I'm going to click Save. And let's go ahead and make sure it worked. So we have our regular situation. It's going to show all the cards, but you'll notice there's a cool little button here now. This is my header, panel header for this header, this button. And watch what happens when I click that. Voila, the menu disappears. Now all this content is available, but check this out. That button's still here. Let's go ahead and click that. Voila, it shows it again. So I really like this design pattern. Just because it allows you to have kind of a permanent structure here to come out here. And you can have ones on the right and left. So normally when we do show panel, it would kind of like overwrite this area here. But sometimes I want to do that slide where it basically slides it out to the side, allows you access, you can do here. And then programmatically, you can click this button to say close there. So let's go ahead and actually show you what that looks like. So let's say I want to have a situation where, and this is kind of back to the person's question, is that I want to give them this ability to do this. And then I want them to be able to say, okay, if it's hidden, not necessarily show this button, but be able to say like, pin menu kind of scenario here. So let's go ahead and modify that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this, an item here. I'm going to rename it. That's going to trigger this behavior to show and hide the menu. So let's go ahead and go into our main menu here. I'm going to go into my data unit. I'm going to go to item number 2, and I'm going to call it pin menu. And the idea is when I click on that, I want to be able to show that menu item there. So let me adjust things here. Hold on a second. To cheat because I have to remember that code real quick. So I'm going to go into my control bar. And I'm going to go to my menu definition. I'm going to go in here. You see I have my second one. I didn't save it, but I'll say pin menu. And I can do something like this. I can go and on click. Normally it wants some JavaScript here, but I can go ahead and create action JavaScript for me. So I'm going to use the classic panel. Let's see. I'm going to go panel. Actions, set active panel to panel menu. So very similar to what we've done before. That's my panel command, and I'm going to go ahead here and say insert that code to run it. And now, if all works great, when the person clicks the pin menu, it's going to actually show this menu. So let's go ahead and give that a try. So the idea is like, here, so this is closed here. Let's say I want to do this, I can say pin menu, and notice it pins that menu here. So I could actually get rid of this because there are programmatic ways to show and hide doc menus kind of scenario. In fact, let me go ahead, so the idea is you could have like, hide menu, pin menu. And then once you know that, you could record it like in the person's user defined information. So when they log in next time, it sets the proper menu structure to them. But this is how you would achieve that sort of, okay, I want to have a menu available, but I want to give the person control. So if they need more screen real estate, let's say on a smaller tablet, they don't have to have that menu and I can have it here. Conversely, this button right here could also hide and show, because in our control bar work, you can actually show and hide. And we actually showed this last week in our offline demonstration. You can actually show and hide items. So if the menu is pinned, you can actually show this whole menu item. When it's here, you would actually hide that because they have a menu available. It doesn't make sense to have both menus available at the same time. So there's some really neat, cool features where you can basically create your own interface, not have to use these buttons and things, and be able to show and hide those user interfaces or those flow things. But the important thing about this is, and I liked it, is that instead of having this menu hover over the content area, the flow capability allows you to just get rid of it altogether and have all this data available until the user needs it. And again, you could put, and what's neat about this, and there's a demo on it, is that you could have another item here with another flow button. So this whole thing could scoot over to the left and show you a whole other item or a whole other panel card. So you can basically nest panel cards together where they basically just keep flowing together and have a single button to collapse them all or to open them one at a time. So there's some really flexible ways and some really kind of cool user interface elements that you can do to make it easy for your developer or for your users to be able to handle those kind of scenarios there. Sorry, just a mind there. So let me go ahead and make sure this is all right. Okay. My mic keeps moving. So I hope that gives, and again, if you're interested in this, I will be glad to send this to you. It requires no database or anything like that. So just give us a ring and send us an email at guides@alphasoftware.com, and I will send that out your way, and we'll help you get a jump start on putting this together. But that's kind of, again, we want to thank the person who sent that question in at Guides. It allowed me to do a little research. So my demo was pretty good. Wasn't exactly perfect, but got close enough to show the concept there.
Bad for a new machine that you got working at the 11th hour.
No, it's crazy, crazy kind of scenario there. So pretty good, Sarah. So if you have questions on that, please let me know. We do have a couple other quick questions in terms of things I want to cover.
Great. So we do have just a question way back on the cloud stuff, and three people asked the same question, so I thought I'd get to it. And the question is, what is a compute unit? So a compute unit, it's actually not a super simple thing to explain, but I'll try to make it super simple. And that is, a compute unit you could think about as directly correlating to the amount of processor usage. So if you have an app that's churning out lots of reports or it's got lots and lots of simultaneous users, that's going to push CPU usage up, and that drives the amount of compute units that you use from your account. We chose that number 100 compute units because we realized that most apps do seem to be able to fall within that realm, but it's really hard to tell. Everyone's app is different, and if yours happens to be very processor hungry, then it's going to require more processor units. So that's basically it. It doesn't. And then the other question we had is, what's a deployment? And a deployment is basically a version of your application that's actively online. So if you have a test version and a production version of an application, then that would be 2 deployments. If you had a development, a staging, a test, a production, that would be more environments. Likewise, you can also have multiple applications deployed simultaneously. Now, that said, if you want to have that 5th application, you don't need, or a 6th one or something like that, and you don't need the test ones running, you can always take them down. So it's just the number of applications that you're running at the same time. They all have different URLs and they all go to different applications. So I think that hopefully clears it up, but I know that we're going to have lots of questions going forward. So by all means, send them in to us at guides@alphasoftware.com, and we're happy to straighten those out.
And a couple things on Dave on that too. One is that there's a full control panel built into Alpha Cloud, so you can monitor that information. You can go in and see what your app's doing, etc. But the reality is those are very liberal, or you can do a lot within those. I mean,
we studied the usage pattern of people who had deployed applications to our cloud over the last few years, and we tried to come up with something that was really quite fair, to the point where it might actually even be a better deal for many people than getting the application server itself, especially when you add into the fact when you have an application server, you still have to host it somewhere, either on your machine where you're maintaining it, or up on a third-party ISP, and that's which adds into it as well.
Yeah, and it's 2 factors: the compute units, so that's how intensive, how much processor horsepower you're doing. Again, things like reports and other hardcore backend things will chew up a lot of compute units, but nothing too crazy. The other element you need to look at is what's your traffic levels in terms of page serves and things like that, because you may have a situation where you have something that's very light. It doesn't do a lot of computing. It basically just queries the database, returns the data. But if you're doing millions of page views, then that's going to be data in and out of the system. And really, this is all based on the underlying cloud platform that we have to pay for. So it's all a matter of just trying to create a very good plan so everybody does well. but you can always grow, which is always an important element there. And again, you don't necessarily have to bump into the newest plan. If you have overages 1 month, there's just overages charged, and you can monitor and track that. So it's really compelling, and it's really the way, it's the where the world is going. And I think you'll find once you understand it, it's actually almost easier to manage and handle than a lot of other scenarios.
Cool, thanks. Let's see what else we've got here. Integrations of DPC. Nope, I think that's about it. I think we are ready to move on to your next topic.
Yeah, we have 2 questions that came in. One is, it had to do our tabbed UI replacement. A gentleman, one of our developers, was using it and had a question. What they were seeing was in their properties here, they had set the style information to a certain style, and then they were launching within their panel cards other UXs, and they were saying the styles didn't match up, meaning like the top level style was compact, the bottom level was like mobile, etc. What we highly recommend you do, instead of going into each of your items and selecting a style name, we highly recommend that you select the style for UXs to be project style. Okay, so that's project style. So I'll click save there. This just says there's a little update there. And so I'm going to go into my project. I'm going to go to my project properties, and I can go into my project style here and select which project I want, or style. So I go OK. So now what's going to happen is any UX that uses project style is going to inherit that. Now, one thing I need to do is I need to put in here compact, pulse. So you'll notice I like to use the compact style. Well, you can't really select it through this interface here. So you just have to put in compact pulse, and that's in the documentation for project style. So if you look on the project style, it tells you exactly how to, put that little text behind it. So now when I go back, I'm going to go back to my Tabflow UI. Notice it says project style, but now when I go in and do this, oh, I have to do, that is one thing that may be causing the problem. Okay, so notice, real important is I kind of changed the style on this. What Alpha does is kind of pre-render capabilities. So you actually have to go down to, where is it here? And this may be causing some of that. Notice we have pre-render component at design time. So I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to save that. And now it's going to do a render. Oh, what's going on there? Wait, which one is there? I have to, this is, I apologize, I didn't run through this before. We did that. We saved it. Let's do a live preview. So it pre-renders everything. Oh, man, interesting. Did I select this right one? Let me go back up here. Oop, well, I guess my demonstration here is not that compelling. Project style. And then if I go to my web project control panel, go to project properties, Alpha, Bluetooth. Let's just do Bluetooth first. Has to do with the re-rendering. Let's see this here. Ah, there we go. Now it's working there. So I must have, maybe my compact pulse, I screwed things up there. So I'll have to go back and double check that there. But that may cause, so you may have to go in, double check your properties to make sure they're, okay, I see what happened here. Oh, that's the dynamic menu. Excuse me, well, that's my old one. I'm really screwing this one up today. Sorry, everybody. Not so slick, but this is a learning experience. We'll get back to you to understand exactly how to address this. Let's see. Okay, so notice that it's using my mobile version of this here. Now let's go back into the project style, and I must have screwed up when I put in here, let's see. Okay, notice here, Alpha compact. So let's go ahead and put in compact, okay? And let's go back to our flow. That was probably the mistake there. Okay, now it's compact. So I must have put a wrong comma or something like that.
You put a semicolon in instead of a colon.
Yeah, so I screwed up there.
CSS,
so very important, right? Read the manual.
Yeah, we could have told you that, but it was just funner to see, if you.
Yeah, if you watch me stumble like that. through the whole
Didn't
thing.
do that to
Yeah,
you too.
thank you. Thank you a little there. So yeah, I think it's all that heat in my brain that's causing it
Could
there.
be, could
So
be.
wrap up, first and foremost, use project style. That way you have one place to set it. And also if you have to make any adjustments, you don't have to open up all your UXs to adjust that. To adjust that, you go to the web projects project properties, go to the project style, select the one, click the more button here, and this will explain how to put in, compact and pulse, which you'll probably want for certain implementations there. And if you do it properly and take your time, you should see successful where now all of your different controls, both the top level, because there is a situation, if you have your top level control and you have embedded controls, it won't render correctly unless they're the same style. It doesn't like two types of styles, because when it renders all the HTML and stuff like that, it wants one set of CSS and HTML. So you really can't say, I've got 5 different styles, I want to open that. That said, I do want to tell you, there is a cool new feature that goes directly to this. There's sort of a tie-in to it, is the ability for the user to select the time at the style at runtime. So we now have the ability for you to say, okay, here's our standard style, but if you want to modify it and have a different color, et cetera, essentially create a different color scheme, et cetera, that is now available. So on the fly, it can adjust it to whatever the user wants. So you can give them a palette of different styles they can select from, and they can go in and change that. So do check that out. That's in the pre-release. It's going to be in the new version, but that's a really nice feature if you want to give your users a little bit saying, I'm not big on blue, I like red or I like green or whatever. You can allow them to, at runtime on the server, update the style and present a new style. So
So
that was
Dion, the other thing that someone is pointing out here is that there is a style updater, a bulk style updater that you can use as well. And if you like, I believe Sarah's actually prepared to talk about it.
yeah, let's do that. Yeah. I
All
actually have to
right.
get prepped for my next segment. So let's, if we don't mind handing it over to her, that way our next
Right.
segment will be less fumbling and more content quality capabilities.
Excellent. Hello, Sarah, are you there? Dun-dun-dun.
I am here. Especially if
Excellent.
I unmute myself.
All right. Can I go ahead and make you the presenter then?
You can. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, loud and clear. Thank you.
Right. So to go hand in hand with project style, if you've built up a lot of components over time and you either want to change them all to use one style, or they're like a fixed theme, or to use the project style, you can use what is known as the bulk updater. And that's found on the web projects control panel under the edit bulk operations menu. And the name of the tool is called Global Replace of Component Styles. And what this does is it lets you go through and see what's assigned to everything. And then you can select some of them using, I think, Shift and Control, or you can select everything and then set it to a fixed style here. So if I like select all here, let's select them all and let's set them all to project style. And then I click apply style. What that will do is go through all of my components and just set them to project style. So that's a quick way to get everything on the same page. If you've got a lot of components and you've been manually setting it over time, this is a way for you to go through and quickly update those.
That is awesome. Thanks very much. All right, Dion, we're going
Yes,
back to you.
sir. Let me one more moment while I put this on screen.
Sure.
So only takes a moment. Not yet. Not yet.
I know.
I
That
know.
dialog box is nagging
I
at
needed to
me.
do a quick adjustment. I had realized that I had destroyed the one I wanted to show. So let's do a quick set. But luckily Alpha is low code, so you can move through these things very quickly. You just got to make sure you click the right buttons. Field list, 1, 2, 3, 4. Detail view, that's what I missed. And disconnected operation. This has to do with a customer or a developer who is developing now more with list controls. And before they were using grids. And so you have certain behavioral patterns on how you handle things with grids. And so they ran into like, well, how do I kind of handle some of the data updating capabilities that are going with there? So let me go ahead and show my screen here. So I'm going to go ahead and I've got a list detail view. So we have here a list detail view off customers. Wait till it opens up and pulls the data. It's fully offline capability. What I want to do is I'm going to go, so we'll have a list control and we have a detail view. So if I go into list control, you'll see we have our fields here. These are the different fields that display on the screen, and then they're automatically tied to your panel card. Now, the thing about the list control, which is very intriguing, is that it handles all the update commands to you. So when you make modifications, it updates the list control, and then the list control updates the backend database. But there may be situations where you want to modify the information before all of that occurs. So when you do that, it's a little different animal. First, if you're setting default values for like new records, instead of doing that in the control itself, you do it in here. So let's say title, you want to have a default value, you set it up right here. And so the idea behind it is that you do your editing and modification information here versus the traditional on dialog validate, on dialog their items from there. So for instance, you can do things like conditional styles and security groups to limit what people can see in the list control from that standpoint. You can compute summary values, etc. The important thing is that traditionally, and let me go back and show you this, is that if this were a data bound control, then on the server side events, you would be using like the after dialog validate to do some validation of the values, or the, on the dialog validate, you would do it before you actually try to save it to the database. And then the after dialog validate, you would do other kind of modifications there. And that works because when you have a data bound UX control, this UX is going to call directly to the database to do the updates. But when you're using a list control, the list control is actually in between the update and the database. So you actually have to do things within the list control versus at the UX level there. So for instance, things like, as I mentioned before, default values and other aspects here. So you can check and modify things here in the list control before that occurs. So you can do the editing of that kind of out. You can do the validation, etc. within that before it gets updated to the database. So the pointer I wanted to give to the person is don't look in the traditional server side events, look inside the list control, and that gives you kind of where you need to go to kind of do those kind of validations. And we can do a little more extensive example of it in the near future, but I want to kind of guide them towards the right location to do those pieces here, is to kind of look inside your list control versus looking inside of the database, or I'm sorry, inside the UX. A couple other things I want to mention too is that it also has a full suite of server-side events. So for instance, when you're about to synchronize that data to the backend database, you have the on synchronize event, which will call an Xbasic and allows you to do some things before you synchronize the data. So you can do some like updates, checks, and other things. You also have the after synchronize, which is very powerful, is that after you've synchronized the data, maybe you want to update another table. Maybe you want to send a message out. Maybe you want to do something else. You can trigger an Xbasic command on the backend server that after the synchronization has occurred, it will trigger those activities. So check both in the field level, but also on a total level, you can go here, to these server-side events that allow you to perform actions on the server before the data is synchronized and after it is synchronized from that standpoint here. You even have this validate. So if you want to do validation on the server, you can say, okay, run this function and then validate it before you do it, you insert it. Now the situation there is that if you then raise the flag saying it didn't make validation, then the user will see that information in the list control, meaning they'll see like a red little caret saying, okay, there's a validation error on here, please fix it and then resubmit or resync to send to the back end. So it's a different animal, and mainly it's different because it was meant to be able to be used offline. So the idea is you don't have that constant server connection. You could update multiple records at one time, then submit them all back, and then you have to kind of handle things on the server there. So that kind of gives you a feel for why the environment's a little different, how we approach things between the two. Versus a data-bound UX, which is done all through those server-side events, and then more the list, you do it within the list customers. That's where you set up those points to make those adjustments, changes, etc.
Cool. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
We are short on questions, oddly enough. Oh, wait a minute. We do have one. And that has to do with that sort of that flow button you were talking about in your earlier example. And the question is, could it be inserted in the tabbed band area so that it doesn't consume additional screen space in its own header area?
Ah, good point. Well, let's test that out. I think it has to be, so
Might
what
have
I
to be
did
in
is I
there.
put it in panel header, but I could do the following. I'm going to go ahead and put in a container.
Mhm.
No, it needs to show the button. Okay, let's see now. So they, maybe run that by me again. They want to, because you need a button to actually.
I guess they want it
show.
in the tabbed area. So first of all, is it, let's take a look at it now.
Well, it's kind of built. The interesting thing about that button is that actually I click on the panel card and that's where I point to the button that
I
sees
see.
it. So it's kind of
Yep.
a pre-coded
Yeah,
animal
it's
there.
pre-built in there, so no, you're not moving it.
Yeah, but let me show you. I've obviously shown that, but if I go to functions and I'm going to go into my method and let's go flow, I think it's there. We do have, check it out, collapse flow and expand flow. So
Oh,
this
okay.
allows you to programmatically do this. So you can put that anywhere you want. So let's do we have how much time? Yeah, I think we can do it. So let's do collapse flow. So I'm going to copy this example and let's go back here. And for giggles, I'm going to go ahead and go into my control bar, add a button here. And we'll just call that button 3. And when it's clicked, we're just going to run this. Now this needs to be, we are panel layout 1 and we want panel card content. Okay. So the idea is when this button's clicked, it should send the command to collapse panel card menu. Actually, we want it menu. That's the one we want to collapse. Okay. So let's go to our layout. Let's go in here. I'm going to go over here and add that button. And let's see if it works. Okay, so we have it over. We got our button here. Nope, didn't work. I'll have to check that out. And is it panel layout 1? I did actually do, let's see. Let's see, I did actually set up, bear with me, JavaScript action. Nope, it's not that one. Yeah, I'll have to go in and look at that. I do know that, again, programmatically, you can, let's see, so we had on actions here, we said panel object, get panel layout 1, right there. And then I said collapse flow, panel card underscore menu. So that all looks great. Well, let me look at that and I'll get the information back. So we'll make sure that people know how you can programmatically close and use the flow commands, because the button, Alpha wants to kind of do this automatically by just pointing to the button so you don't have to do any coding. But we do have these, we do have these collapse flow and other capabilities here. Oh, I'm an idiot. Okay. So panel get, oh yeah, it is right. Okay, panel get is the type level because it's actually telling the layout to do that. We'll get it fixed. We'll figure it out and we'll add it to the information and we'll have a fixture or find that for you.
Excellent. Great. Very good. Well, we have come to the end of our questions, but if you do have further questions, by all means, send them to guides, guides@alphasoftware.com. Thanks very much, Dion, for presenting. Thank you, Sarah, also for presenting and answering questions there in the background. And we hope to see you next Wednesday at the next Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. Take care and goodbye. Thanks.